This is the lab at the forefront of the fight against the Zika virus using genetically modified mosquitoes.
We have created a strain of Aedes aegypti, which is the mosquito that spreads dengue and Zika virus. Everything here carries a self-limiting gene. We release males into the environment, and when those males mate with females, the offspring inherit the gene and they die.
What it is, Zika virus. Boy, I've got a story for you today, and it's relatively frightening. I have to be serious here. And it's about what is truly causing the birth defects that we are seeing being attributed to the Zika virus. And it has to do with these genetically modified mosquitoes. And it's like I said, quite frightening if I'm correct. And I would say, in my estimation, that the odds are that I am, based on the evidence that I'm going to show you. So first things first, let me just show you how we got to this point, where the story is right now. This is from U.S. News and World Report and gives you the headline for why this has become such a scary thing to people. Zika disease in pregnant women can be devastating. More than 3,500 cases of pregnancies in Brazil where the developing fetus missing parts of the brain. So the thing about Zika is it's been around for a while, and I'll start reading from this article here. The virus called Zika is named for the forest in Uganda where it was first reported in a rhesus monkey in the 1950s. Until a major outbreak in Micronesia in 2007, human infections were thought to be rare. Now, Zika, sweeping through Latin America and the Caribbean, has been linked to a brain malformation called microcephaly, often fatal, reported in as many as 3,530 Brazilian pregnancies. It's also been linked to the neurological disorder known as Guillain-Barré syndrome. So that is what made this become a global pandemic. And the reason is these shrunken heads, basically microcephaly. But in this article, it talks about how this virus has been around for a while, and it was reported elsewhere without any birth defects tied to it. They first started in Brazil. Here's the quote. In a 2007 outbreak on the island of Yap, a diving mecca in Micronesia, roughly 75% of the island's 5,000 inhabitants were infected. There were no birth defects reported, but that may be because the population of Yap is so small, Peterson says. A much larger outbreak was reported in French Polynesia in 2013 and 14, affecting 30,000 people. At the time of the outbreak, no fetal abnormalities were identified. When they saw what was happening in Brazil, they went back and found microcephaly cases, this doctor says. Now, that is where I'm going to suggest this report is going, is the first cases, this huge explosion of cases of microcephaly and birth defects was in Brazil. Now, Brazil happens to be where they started testing these genetically modified mosquitoes from a company called Oxitec. And there are already conspiracy theories out there about how the mosquitoes are spreading Zika and working backwards, basically. Instead of killing off the Zika mosquitoes, they are spreading Zika. Well, that, it appears to me, is not the problem. The problem is the genetically modified mosquitoes inserting their genetic coding, which is meant to disrupt the reproduction of female mosquitoes, and it's disrupting the production of human fetuses. That's what appears to be happening. I'll show you a little evidence of that. Here is a map. This is from Zero Hedge, but it is all correct, so it's all done out for me. I did the background research, and you're welcome to as well. It shows here on the top map where these genetically modified mosquitoes were first released in the northeast of Brazil there. And this lower map shows where the cases of microcephaly were reported. They say Zika related cases of microcephaly, but the way they are diagnosing it as having the ties to Zika are not definitive. They're suggested in regards to them being causal. They've actually been very cautious to say this is causal. And the reason for that, I'll go to another report here. This is more of a scientific paper. Zika virus and birth defects, reviewing the evidence for causality. And here, the reason they said they've taken a cautious approach, it says this cautious approach toward ascribing Zika virus as a cause of birth defects is not surprising, given that the last time an infectious pathogen caused an epidemic of congenital defects was more than 50 years ago. No flavivirus has ever been shown to definitively cause birth defects in humans, and no reports of adverse pregnancy or birth outcomes were noted during previous outbreaks of Zika virus in the Pacific Islands. In that one case, an island of 5,000 people, 75% of the island population was infected, and they reported no birth defects. The first birth defects, I'll pull up the map again, right around where these mosquitoes were released. Let me tell you about how these mosquitoes work. This is from the Oxitec website, and I was going to read you what they wrote here for how it works. Oh, look who joined me. Awesome. Just on time, dude. So instead of reading it, I'm just going to show you a picture and explain it. So basically, the deal is the male mosquitoes are engineered by this company Oxitec to have what they call a self-limiting gene. And it's something where the gene ties up the processes of the other genes so that you can't grow, basically. And so it kills the offspring in particular of female mosquitoes. You might ask yourself, how do they breed these male mosquitoes if they have a gene that makes them die? Well, they have an antidote to it, tetracycline. So they deliver this thing called TTAV. It's basically tetracycline, and then it's some kind of protein. And there's pictures here, and this part shows you what the protein is. And then what happens is the protein fills up what they call the transcriptional machinery, and so it can operate. And the transcriptional machinery is what's writing code to keep you alive and make you grow and stuff. And that's how it works to kill these mosquitoes. But again, there is an antidote, tetracycline. Now, first of all, I'm surprised if nobody's gone down this road before, but you have basically an explosion of cases of birth defects right around a place where mosquitoes, who are engineered to give each other birth defects, have been released in the wild to control a population of mosquitoes. So they say in this article right here, it's a gene variant that has been optimized to only work in insect cells. Well, I wonder if they tested it on pregnant women before they started releasing these mosquitoes into the wild. Because I think the correlation is fairly strong. And in case you haven't heard, I'll give you a headline here. FDA has just approved Zika fighting genetically modified mosquito to be tested in Florida. So you might be thinking to yourself, boy, we got to stop these genetically modified mosquitoes from getting out, because if we keep making them, they're going to keep causing these birth defects. And you're absolutely right. You could. So the idea is that they feed the ones that they're reproducing, the males, the ones that they are going to release into the wild, they feed them a diet of tetracycline. And that's how they're able to survive. Tetracycline is a very strong antibiotic, not used in humans too often. So some of the conspiracy theories are that the genetically modified mosquitoes are actually transmitting the Zika virus more, and they found a way to adapt and reproduce. Because otherwise, we wouldn't have to worry so much about these engineered mosquitoes if they stop making them, if they just die off because of this self-limiting gene, which only is neutralized with a diet of tetracycline. Okay? Well, the problem is that tetracycline is the most used drug in food-producing animals. This is from the FDA. Figure 1A here, antimicrobial drug classes approved for use in food-producing animals. And this is in 2010, and you can see tetracyclines there at the bottom of the list. By far the largest component of that graph, about 43%, 44% of all antibiotics sold for use with food-producing animals is tetracycline. So you tell me if you don't think there's enough tetracycline out there to keep these genetically modified baby killers alive and thriving. Nature always finds a way. And I guess that's what happened in Jurassic Park. But they're doing a lot of crazy stuff in response to this, and I'll cover that in a separate episode about Zika. The response, which is vaccines, chemicals, and genetically modified mosquitoes. The cure to all of society's ills. This is a really dangerous thing. So, in fact, I don't cover stuff where I worry about stuff, and I'm not worried, but this seems like a big deal because this virus is normally just like getting a cold. The Zika is not a big deal. 4 out of 5 people don't notice any symptoms, and they become immune to it after about a week. It's not a thing. The thing is these babies with shrunken heads. And the babies with shrunken heads are being caused by genetically modified mosquitoes that have been let loose without any oversight. So it's messed up. I say it's messed up. So that's a big story. I came back at you with a big story after doing some smaller stories, appreciated ones. But I'm sure some of you are happy to have me back on this track. This needs to get picked up. If nobody else is talking about this, this is the real deal. So that's what I'm telling you. You heard it from Lift the Veil, and now you can tell other people. Okay, cheers.
It's so far proven an effective tool, and one that could be quickly scaled up. Millions of mosquitoes can be bred in a lab like this in just a matter of months.
Although this is a relatively new technology, it's ready to go. We can go to operational scale. We have the production, we have the methodologies, we have the quality control.
GM technology is not without its critics, but Oxitec says its system is safe.
We're also developing exactly the same approach in pests that damage crops or attack animals. And we've got several of those programs started now. I mean, there's so many different approaches, so markets for this technology. And in each case, you can do a very good job in terms of controlling the pest, but doing so in a way that's safe and friendly for the environment.